We were down two safeties at practice yesterday. We have two healthy safeties. What's the plan at that position?
Yeah, we're ready to go. We have good depth here. Guys that are multi purpose. Throughout the secondary. So we feel like we have a good plan that we've been getting ready for all week with practice, and we'll see what happens when we make that final injury report today.
Yeah. McCollum on the practice squad. What did you see from him throughout camp?
Yeah. Obviously, we look at this as a 69-man roster, not a 53-man roster. So he's done a really good job, and we keep guys around that we can develop and that can also be ready to step in and play if their number is called. So we're confident in him if his number is called, that he can come in and do an effective job.
Nick, what have you noticed about Jalen as he's going up against three defenses that have provided exotic looks or that kind of thing? How he's handled that process?
Yeah, like I said, I think he's played well. I think he's done a good job. We're 3-0. He's the leader of the ship, and so he's done a good job. I think against Minnesota, again, some of the stats might not look pretty, just because of the, how much we've run the football based off of how the games have went, but completing 78% of his passes against Minnesota was impressive. I thought he played a solid game last game. And so, I see him continuing to improve. And, again, we're where we need to be right now at 3-0, and we just want to continue to improve off of that.
Are you not running those? I asked Brian this question yesterday. I want to hear your answer about the zone read. Is he as involved in that? Are you guys using that as much as previously?
We're still running that. Again, zone reads. Sometimes you guys are going to see zone read as did we run that or not? When he hands it off. Sorry, I shouldn't have put this but sometimes you're going to read that as, well, maybe they're not right. Well, so part of it, you don't keep a zone read unless the defense tells you to keep the zone read, right? Or same thing with an RPO. You don't pull an RPO to throw it unless the defense dictates that, right? The RPO and the zone read are really good if this, then that, right? And so, we're still a big part of our game, still a big part of our game plan. It's just we haven't had to pull many of them throughout these first couple weeks.
So you mentioned his stats not looking great. I assume you're referencing the passing game, but the running numbers are definitely down. Are defenses doing something different to stop him in the run game?
He hasn't got as many pulls, right, and that have turned into explosive plays. But that doesn't mean that it's not being effective, right? We've ran the ball really well, partly because the effect that Jalen has on the backside. Obviously the O-line's done a great job. The tight ends have done a great job. The running backs have done a great job running the football. But when you have a quarterback like Jalen, when you hand it, the whole backside is affected, which allows your backside of your line to get the cutoffs to have these explosive runs. So are Jalen's numbers up in the run game? No, but our numbers are up in the run game, and he greatly affects what happens in the run game because of who he is and his threat to be able to keep it around the edge. Again, some teams are going to say, hand it off, Jalen. Some teams are going to make him pull it, and it's just a matter of every week's going to be a little bit different. And so, but make no mistake about it, like when he hands the ball off and bursts off the backside, he affects the defense, and that's as good as a block sometimes, right? Because you hold it and set up blocks for other things. So again, like the numbers in a small sample size, I just think it's too early to tell on some of that with the small sample size of 3 games.
Passing game, with the passing. Reddick mentioned yesterday that he's kind of.
Keep going. I want you guys to fight this out. Go ahead. I'm coming. I'll get both of you.
Hassan mentioned yesterday that offenses are chipping him and Josh and Brandon at an alarming rate.
Sure.
Obviously, it's 70 sacks last year. Are you noticing that as well, that there's more attention being paid to the edge and it's allowing the D tackles to kind of.
Yeah, it's the same. It's kind of the same question on the defensive side that with what we just talked about with the run game, when you can't, you get a little, you lose a little, right? You know, so if I'm putting my emphasis on stopping the ends, well, then I have one-on-ones on the inside at times, right? It could be at times. And if I go a different way and I try to go inside, then I have a effect outside. And so again, you feel fortunate as, you know, on this team because you have weapons everywhere, right? And that's the same thing with that's the same thing with receivers. You try to stop AJ, well, then you have Devontae in Dallas and vice versa. And so that's the benefit of, you know, like having all these studs on our team, is that when the emphasis goes to one guy, right, the other guy can take over. Not every team has that luxury. And so great job by Howie to create this depth and bring these players in. Great job by our coaches to develop the players that have been brought in. And then great job, obviously, first and foremost, by the players to go out and be good players, to put the pressure on these guys. And so there's no doubt, like, and that goes, I think, in the defensive, on the defensive line room, that goes in kind of flows, right? Like, a team could see it as like, well, Hassan hasn't had a sack in 3 weeks. Cool, put all your resources to stop Sweat or Jalen or Jordan or Fletch, or should I go on, Brandon or Derek or Nolan, right? And so, you know, that goes in ebbs and flows, like, as you go, like, because you're going to have to pick your poison there. But yeah, definitely. I mean, your job as a coach is always to look at the other team and say, how do I not let these guys beat us? And so you're going to see, you know, teams do that against our defensive line. But fortunately, we have a bunch of guys that can get after it.
With the passing game, talking to Dallas this week, and you mentioned it coming into the season, you're expecting a lot of unscouted looks early, especially with the coordinators. He said he thought it was going to change. Is that your philosophy, or do you think you have to get people
We'll see.
out of that umbrella coverage?
Well, you know, teams aren't, if it's part of who you are, it's part of who you are. If it's not, then you're doing something that maybe you don't know a lot. Like, I know that's our, you know, one of our philosophies. If we're going to put a new scheme in, I'm going to really study it hard and spend time studying it. Make sure it fits us, make sure we know all the coaching points that go into allowing us to do that. Oh yeah, good, it looks good versus this, but what if they do this, right? And that's the dangers of just saying, I'm just going to throw one in. Now, you know, throw a play in on my end. And so I think that happens a little bit the same thing with defenses. Like, yeah, we can put this in, but do we know every coaching point there is to it? And as soon as you hit a play on that, and you're like, oh, you know, that could pull them out of it. And so, but we're gonna, when you're good on offense, and when you've had the success on offense that we've had, and then for these past 2 games, the 400 plus yards on offense that we've had, we're gonna see things that are unscouted looks. That's just the way it's gonna be. Some more exotic than others. And so we'll have to be ready for it. Do I know? I don't know. I'm not in their meetings, so I don't know what their thought process is. But I know our thought process is we have to be able to handle the unknowns, because that's just the nature of this when you're successful on offense.